In this lesson we're going to talk about application settings, time clock settings. So we click on application settings, and then the top tab here is time clock settings. And this first option we have here is the employee clocking mode, and in this case it's set for simple clocking. That means anyone clocking in at 7 o'clock in the morning and clocking out at 4 o'clock in the afternoon or 1600, it'll calculate the time between those two clockings. If that employee was to clock in between those two times, the system would still record those clockings, but it wouldn't make any difference to the calculations. So it would still calculate the time between, in that example, 7 AM through to 1600 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. If you do want employees to clock in and out for their breaks, so they might clock in at 7 o'clock, clock out at 12, clock back in again at 12:30, and then clock out to go home at 1600, and that half an hour in that case would be the break, you would need to turn on the multiple or complex clockings, in which case then the system will look at clocking pairs. The next option down here is allow clockings over midnight. If you turn that on, it will turn on extra facilities within the work rule, which enables you to change the virtual midnight setting. And this is used for people where you might be running a night shift. You have someone starting at 10 o'clock at night or 2200 and clocking out the next morning at say 6 or 7 AM, and you want those two clockings to be treated over the one day. And there is a separate lesson for how you turn on clockings over midnight. Employees in and out break transfer functions when clocking. This is used in conjunction with a setting in the time clock. If you just have simple clocking where people clock in and clock out and nothing else, then there's no need to use this. If you do want people to use a function key on the clock to say I'm clocking in, and then they clock and they might enter some job costing information, or you might want to do transfers, then you need to use this in conjunction with that function in the time clock. Clock comms applications running locally or in a semi-automatic mode or on another server. This allows you to install and run clock comms by default on your local machine, so that any machine that's loaded with the system can talk to the time clock and can retrieve data. If you don't want that facility to happen at each workstation, you can disable it by saying it's running on another server, and that way you won't be given the option to run clock comms on this particular machine. Mainly used when you have lots of different machines running on the system, but you only want to have one central point that's actually polling the data. Clock comms export import path. This is used for pointing on your system where you are going to export the data from clock comms and or import the data, which would be files generated for employee names and so forth. It's an optional setting. It's set to default by the system where it's installed. It's mainly used again on larger systems where you might want to point it to somewhere different. And third-party clocking interface currently is disabled by default. That's when you want to interface the system, in this case, to another face recognition time clock, which is the ZK software. Again, by default that's disabled. And that's it.